Good morning and welcome to Ask the Expert. I'm Joe Taylor. This morning, another in the ongoing series of programs presented by the Northwest Regional Key Program for Quality Early Learning. The program, through the Northwest Institute of Research, oversees a grant from the Office of Child Development and Early Learning at the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services and the Department of Education. The goal of the program is to improve the outcomes for young children as they prepare for school. John Posa from the Pennsylvania Key is the host of the program and is with us throughout the series. Good morning, John, and who do we have on the line this morning?
Well, good morning, Joe. This morning we have Maryanne Olley, who serves as an early education advisor with the Office of Child Development and Early Learning in Harrisburg. And one of Maryanne's roles is leading the work on early learning standards for early childhood and the related standards-based resources. You know, the standards greatly influence resources used for families and particularly for educators. So welcome to the program, Maryanne.
Thank you, John. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, I know that the standards are really a passion for you and the work that you do. Tell our listeners, especially for parents that are listening, about how important the standards are in terms of the work that they do with their young children, even before they're ready to go to school.
Sure. So in Pennsylvania, since about the year 2007, we have what is called the Learning Standards for Early Childhood. And basically those are a set of expectations, or you could call them guidelines. Some people call them or refer to them as developmental milestones. And they really they show what children in that age range should know and be able to demonstrate by the end of that particular age range. So in Pennsylvania, we have infant standards, we have young toddler, and we have older toddler, and then we have pre-kindergarten, which spans the ages from 3 to 5, so right before the kindergarten age. One thing that I would note to families that is unique about our standards here in Pennsylvania is that we don't just cover the content areas, and when I say content areas, I mean like English language arts or language and literacy, mathematics, science, social studies, but we also tackle what is coming to know across the country as really executive functioning skills. So we're looking at social and emotional development, as well as what we call approaches to learning. So children's ability to really be curious and take initiative and have persistence. And some of those skills are really the foundation for later learning in K-12.
Absolutely. And, you know, for families who may not be as familiar with what those standards entail, how can they access them? So I mean, like, so if they have a kiddo that's still an infant or toddler and maybe isn't, you know, in any kind of a formal childcare setting, how can a parent, especially a new parent, access those standards to become maybe more familiar with them in working with their children?
Sure. So one thing that I think I would suggest for families, and I think you alluded to this at the very beginning, is that we do have a number of really great family resources that are all aligned to the standards. We've got some that are regarding kindergarten, like Kindergarten Here I Am, Kindergarten Here I Come. We have some that are geared more to infants and toddlers, and then some are specifically for pre-K. But if they go onto the PA Promise website and they actually register, they will get notifications of how to access these resources. They'll also get through like an e-newsletter, kind of one-pagers that come directly from these family-friendly resources. If they do have an interest in actually seeing the standards themselves, I would refer them to the Pennsylvania Key website, where they could go on to the Standards tab, and they could actually download them on the computer to look through them if they wanted to. And certainly there are ways that if they had an interest in purchasing them, they could contact me, or they could go on to what is called the Shop PA Heritage website, and for a nominal fee, they could actually purchase them in hardback copy.
Okay, so just for starters, the first place parents should go is, we mentioned about the PA Promise for Children website. That is www.pa papromiseforchildren.com, just how it sounds. And for more specifics regarding the standards themselves, the PA Keys website is www.pakeys.org, pakeys.org.
A question that would occur to me as a grandparent and back in the day as a parent would be, if I am looking at these standards and I say, gee, my kid is not quite where he or she should be, I could interpret this as kind of, this is a report card on my kid and they're failing. What does a parent do, and how should they interpret looking at the standards and comparing it with the progress of their child? And if there appears to be a delay, what do they do then? You see what I'm asking from a parental or grandparental point of view?
Absolutely. So I think what I would say to you as a grandparent is to certainly keep in mind that young children's development is kind of at times very all over the place. So even though there are milestones in place, the way that young children hit those milestones may look a little different. Now, if there is something certainly that is more of like a red flag for concern with a grandchild or a parent with their child, they could call, and in Pennsylvania there's a Connect helpline where they could actually call and kind of share their concerns and get some feedback. If the child is in, and I know you I think have alluded that the child would not be, but just to share this with families, if a child is in a state-funded program or preschool, they are required to do screenings. And so through the screening process, there could be some sort of red flag or area of concern that would be identified that would be shared with families who could then seek further evaluation.
Right. And Maryanne has a great background, and you may want to talk about it a little bit, Maryanne. Before you actually came back to Pennsylvania, I know you're originally from the Harrisburg area. You actually owned your own child care center in North Carolina, correct?
I did. That was actually, to this date, I think the most fulfilling work that I've had. I owned an early care and education center in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, so on the Outer Banks of North Carolina.
Right.
We housed 120 children birth to age 5, and then we also had an after-school program that consisted of about 40, and employed about 27 teachers, part-time, full-time, substitutes, et cetera. But it was an incredible experience.
So bringing that background, and coming back to Pennsylvania, you obviously have a well-rounded, and you have a rich appreciation for particularly not only with what early childhood educators working in that preschool or child care setting are working with in terms of the resources they use with children, but also you have that experience in working with families as well. So kind of have that firsthand knowledge of not only the work that you do and the importance in working with your own staff and the teachers, but also the impact it's having on those children and what those families also get out of working with you and the resources that they need to be looking at.
Absolutely. And speaking of families, I think that is one really key takeaway that I would encourage any family member that's listening to this radio show is engaging in their child's education is just so very important. And that doesn't necessarily meaning that they have to go in and volunteer, but just making sure that they ask their child questions about what they've learned in school, showing up at those parent-teacher conferences or family-teacher conferences and really engaging and trying to understand where their child is. And then also carrying whatever they can to the home and certainly trying to continue that encouragement and support of their child's learning.
What is concerning to me, living here in a rural area and talking to younger people frequently, I don't know that all of the younger parents have their kids in quality early childhood learning programs or even appreciate the importance of it. What more is being done? What more could be done to get more parents, especially in areas like ours, to enroll their children in these programs and to understand the importance, not only as just a place they can put their kid in kind of a daycare situation, but the importance of that child as they enter school?
Well, one thing I can say is that currently in the Commonwealth, we are going through a 5-year recompete with a high-quality state-funded program called Pre-K Counts. And the governor has allotted more money, hopefully that will follow through in this year's budget, which would open up more high-quality pre-K programming in these communities. Certainly, we brought certified programs into our quality rating improvement system, which is called Keystone Stars, so they will have access to more information surrounding standards, curriculum, and assessment, and those supportive practices. But I would just say, families really have to recognize that they are their child's first teacher, and even though their child may or may not be going to a quality program, what they do at home is equally as important. I would encourage all families, the best that they possibly can, to continually engage their child in interaction, reciprocal conversations, introducing them to new vocabulary and things like that. And also one thing that kind of came to my mind is very often with young children, they want to do everything. And I think sometimes family members will do things for them because either it's going to take too long, they may not do it right. Allowing that child to go through the process of doing it on their own, perhaps failing and learning from it, is really key, again, to develop these executive functioning skills that is going to carry through with later content learning in school.
Absolutely. We're talking with Maryanne Olley, the Early Education Advisor with the Office of Child Development and Early Learning. Maryanne, we kind of preach the subject all the time in the work we do about the importance of family engagement and getting more families to really take a heightened interest in the development of their child. And sometimes that involves getting to know their teachers better, and teachers also doing the same with the parent, because it's a two-way street. I mean, the educator, the more they know about the child and the more they can have that relationship with the parent, the better that they're going to be able to work with the child to know what the interests and what their strengths and things that maybe they could also work on to improve. So I've always felt that it's kind of the community, it's everyone's job to be an advocate for children. And so, I think that's kind of what we are trying to do through the PA Keys and through OCDEL, right? Is to basically take a holistic approach and have everyone realize the importance of children's development and having our kiddos ready for school, right?
Absolutely. And I'm going to just touch on one thing that you just said, John, and that would be ready for school. And I think that we always try to frame readiness, because that's such a hot topic.
Right.
We always try to frame readiness in looking at it as a broader perspective. So not just a child being ready, but that the school is ready to meet the child where they are, and that the communities are also supporting the readiness, and families are ready, teachers are ready, et cetera. And if one thing, and I kind of keep going back to this executive functioning, but we've been doing a lot of training with kindergarten teachers regarding a different initiative here at the office. And one thing we hear from them over and over and over is, while they appreciate children coming to them, kind of knowing their letters or being able to count 1 to 10, 1 to 20, what they would want even more so is for children to come to them with some kind of executive functioning, that they're able to really regulate their emotions or behaviors, or be able to kind of like do some conflict resolution or attend to tasks, that if children could come to school with these types of skills, that they can take it from there with the content.
Right, absolutely. One of the tools that I know you work closely with that helps in preparing kindergarten teachers, especially with the new coming kiddos that are starting school, we call it the kindergarten entry inventory. Can you talk a little bit about how that works and how successful it has been in the Commonwealth?
Sure. So the kindergarten inventory is a snapshot of how children enter kindergarten, and it's information that's actually captured from the kindergarten teacher within the first 45 calendar days of the school year. It was actually developed by Pennsylvania in-house. It went through a series of pilot years, and then we're actually moving into our 5th year of implementation, which is pretty amazing. So right now we have, I would say, over 40-some districts that use the KEI as that snapshot of entry. One thing that we've heard in regards to feedback from the school districts and schools and teachers that are using it is because it's not just looking at content area like language and math, it's looking at those other skills that I've been talking about, that within the first 45 days of the school year, the teacher feels holistically that they really understand who that child is that's sitting in front of them much better than if they would not have used this actual inventory. So it's been very, very successful. We've been able to support it through our Race to the Top federal funding, but now we just found out, because that's ending, that the Department of Education is going to fully support that moving forward.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And of course, it's also important for the preschool providers as well, having knowledge of what that inventory is about, because after all, they are the ones that are preparing those kiddos for going to kindergarten. So it's important to know what the expectations on both sides, from the preschool providers as well as those in kindergarten.
Mm-hmm. Well, and to kind of piggyback off of that, John, the kindergarten entry inventory, because we're looking at how children are entering, is based on 30 standards from the pre-kindergarten standards. So if pre-K teachers, if pre-K programs are actually implementing and using the standards or using a curriculum that's aligned to the standards, they're already doing what they need to do to prepare kiddos for kindergarten.
I believe the Office of Childhood Development and Early Learning has been in existence, I think, since 2007?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm always interested in results. Are there metrics or tangible evidences that this emphasis on early learning is having positive results? I guess the bottom line question is, how do we know this is working?
Well, there was a period of time where we were able, because we were actually capturing information here at the state, we were capturing some outcomes using one particular tool that was funded for all state-funded programs. So we were able to capture that information, and we were able to report that to legislators aggregately. But we did have some changes, and we had to, as a state, move away from the use of one tool. We opened it up to choice. So because of that, and because the different assessments are a little bit, they're not completely on the same level, we've not been able to capture that same information to share with legislators. However, Pennsylvania Partnerships for Children, they put together some really good data using a lot of what we provide to them that actually shows how children in different state-funded programs, as well as home visiting programs, things like that, are doing in the Commonwealth. So I would refer to families, they kind of come out with a readiness report card every year, and I would refer families to kind of be on the lookout for that through Pennsylvania Partnerships for Children.
And without getting into the specific numbers geographically and so forth, I could tell you this, Joe, that those children that actually go through quality preschool situations and classrooms are definitely more ready for kindergarten and do better in school than those that do not. So that much we do know. So from the standpoint of the impact of the programs, part of our additional challenge in Pennsylvania is having more of those programs. So of course, Maryanne mentioned about additional classroom slots for pre-K counts classrooms, which is we're always looking for statewide. But sometimes we still have pockets in our state that are rural, where the access isn't quite there to a quality childcare, whether it's a pre-K counts or whether it's a Star 3 or 4 program.
And then, of course, in our area, transportation is a huge issue.
Yes, yeah,
that
of course.
That certainly is a challenge.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to ask you, Maryanne, and I don't know how much you can comment on this, but with the new ESSA, we call it for short ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, the Federal Act. There was a change because ESSA replaced No Child Left Behind. There's a component of ESSA that specifically requires schools to partner with preschool programs. Isn't that correct?
That is correct. There is There is language within ESSA where they have to have an MOU.
Right.
And I believe it might be with the Head Start programs in their area.
Right. Right. And I believe that because obviously the federal government sees that importance in it's all part of the same piece of the puzzle in preparing our kiddos for formal schooling, is having that relationship and having a better idea. And I think there's a professional development component as well in ESSA for those folks that are with Head Start, and professional development for those who are in the school system, in becoming more familiar with preschool environments. Isn't that true?
I believe that there is that professional development component.
Right.
But I do want to say I've been in the field now of early childhood education for over 25 years, and I think that finally the value of prior to K-12 experience is really heading into the light over the last decade. The importance of it, I think we've seen nationally. I think that we've seen it in our state with the support of the past governor and our current governor. So I feel that we're just in a really good limelight right now for the value of early childhood education, and I don't see that going away anytime.
Right. And I know you talked about your work with in the center that you owned in North Carolina and coming back to Pennsylvania. Tell us about what interests you, why you are so dedicated in the type of work that you do.
Well, I don't want this to sound cliche, but when I was young, I remember a girlfriend and myself, we would always get together and we would always play school. And that just was something that kind of carried me throughout. And when I graduated, I actually graduated with a dual degree in early childhood and elementary. And I immediately went to the younger. And I think because what I know about brain development, I mean, from 0 to 3, from 0 to 5 is really when the brain and the mind is most malleable. So their ability to learn and to just gather information is just ripe. And so when I was teaching, I mean, I always had thought, if I can provide them quality experiences and, opportunities to process information and learn and interact. And I mean, it was just so fulfilling. And so, moving from a teaching position into more of an administrative with my school and then now working for the state, it's taken on different roles at different levels. But I think the most important thing that we can do is place a lot of importance and emphasis on our most early learners.
Well, we've got about a minute left, Maryanne. Tell us about what's on the forefront in terms of the work that you're doing and what families can look forward to in the coming year.
Well, certainly as far as the work that I do, we are always opening up any curriculum vendors or assessment companies that want to demonstrate alignment to our learning standards for early childhood. We have an approved list that we use and we share with providers. They certainly are more than welcome, and they kind of trickle in throughout the year. We have a lot of things going on within our office with the development of early learning resource centers that are going to move forward July 1st. Continuing our kindergarten entry inventory work, and it's never a dull time. Yeah,
that's for sure. We've been talking with Maryanne Olley, the Early Education Advisor with the Office of Child Development and Early Learning, and our time has run up. So, Maryanne, I appreciate you being on the program. I mean, the information was just extremely good resources that we talked about for families. So thank you for being on the program. We hope to have you on again.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
And that's our program for today. We'll be back in 2 weeks at this same time. In the meantime, you can go online to learn more at papromiseforchildren.com. For John Posa and the Northwest Regional Key Program for Quality Early Learning, I'm Joe Taylor. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.